In the late 17th century, the Kingdom of Scotland was a wounded lion. While the rest of Europe was feasting on the riches of the New World, Scotland was starving. A series of failed harvests, known as the 7 Ill Years, had turned the Highlands into a graveyard. People were eating grass to survive, and the population was plummeting. But the hunger wasn't just physical, it was geopolitical. The English Navigation Acts had effectively banned Scotland from trading with England's growing empire. Scotland was a sovereign nation, but it was being choked into insignificance. Enter William Paterson. He was a man of grand visions and even grander shadows. As a co-founder of the Bank of England, he had the ears of the powerful. He didn't just propose a colony, he proposed a revolution. He pointed to the Isthmus of Darien in Panama, a thin neck of land separating the two greatest oceans on Earth. Trade will flow through us, he promised. We will not just be a kingdom, we will be the warehouse of the world.
What followed was perhaps the greatest case of collective hysteria in history.
Paterson's Company of Scotland became a national obsession. This wasn't just the wealthy investing, this was a nation's last stand. Widows gave up their pensions, town councils emptied their coffers. People sold their homes and livestock just to own a piece of the Darien Dream. By 1696, over £400,000 had been raised, an astronomical sum, representing nearly half of all the liquid wealth in Scotland. But as the money flowed in, the planning fell apart. The directors of the company had never seen a jungle. They were merchants from the cold, damp north, imagining a paradise that didn't exist. They spent the capital on 5 massive ships and filled them with goods that made sense in an Edinburgh market, but were a death sentence in the tropics. They packed thousands of heavy woolen stockings, thick tweed coats, and thousands of Bibles for a population that didn't speak their language and lived in 100% humidity. It was a tragedy written in ledgers before a single ship even sailed.
July 14th, 1698.
1,200 souls cheered as they left the port of Leith. They called themselves the Pioneers. Among them were soldiers, aristocrats, and families looking for a new life. William Paterson himself was on board, joined by his wife and son. The voyage was a slow descent into misery. The ships were overcrowded, and the salted beef they had packed began to rot within weeks. Water barrels grew stagnant and green. But while food was rationed, the brandy was not. The leaders believed alcohol would steal the nerves of the men. Instead, it led to a ship full of malnourished, dehydrated men suffering from early-stage scurvy and alcohol poisoning. When they finally sighted the coast of Panama 4 months later, they weren't conquerors. They were ghosts in waiting. The land they named New Caledonia was a nightmare. The fertile soil, Paterson promised, was a swamp that swallowed their boots. The easy-to-clear forest was a wall of vines so thick that a man could swing an axe for an hour and only move 10 feet. And then came the rain. In Darien, it doesn't just rain. The sky collapses. The humidity was so high that their clothes rotted off their bodies. Their leather boots grew mold overnight. And in that heat, the killers arrived. Mosquitoes. Malaria and yellow fever tore through the camp like a scythe. Men would be working in the morning and dead by sundown. Their skin turned a sickly yellow. Paterson's own family succumbed within weeks. He watched his wife and child die in the mud, unable to provide even a clean sip of water. The warehouse of the world was now a factory of graves. At the height of the epidemic, they were burying 12 people a day.
As if the disease wasn't enough, the jungle itself seemed to hunt them.
Nighttime brought out the crabs. Thousands of them would swarm the camp, drawn by the scent of rotting food and eventually rotting flesh. Settlers woke up to find their toes and fingers being nibbled by scavengers. Leeches as long as a man's hand latched onto legs. Every scratch became an infected ulcer. Hunger turned to starvation. They tried to trade their Bibles and woolen stockings to the local indigenous tribes, but the natives looked at the dying Scots with pity and confusion. Who would want a heavy wig or a woolen sock in a swamp? Worst of all was the betrayal. The English colonies in Jamaica and New York were forbidden from sending aid. King William III, fearing Spanish retaliation, issued a proclamation: provide no food, no water, and no shelter to the Scots at Darien. Their own king had signed their death warrant to protect English politics.
By July 1699, the survivors had had enough. They abandoned the colony, piling into the remaining ships. One of those ships, the Albion, was so full of dying men that there weren't enough healthy sailors to toss the bodies overboard. It became a floating tomb. But the tragedy wasn't over. In Scotland, news traveled slowly. A second expedition of 1,300 people was already on its way. When they arrived at Darien, they expected to see a thriving city. Instead, they found a scorched clearing, broken huts, and hundreds of shallow graves. Instead of turning back, they tried to rebuild. But the Spanish had lost their patience. A Spanish fleet surrounded the bay while an army marched through the jungle. The weakened Scots fought bravely, but they were skeletons holding muskets. In April 1700, they surrendered. Out of the 2,500 people who went to Darien, fewer than 300 ever saw the hills of Scotland again. The failure of Darien was the end of Scotland as an independent power. The nation was bankrupt. The elite had lost everything. Scotland was a broken country, ripe for the taking. England offered a rescue package, the equivalent. They would pay back the investors of the Darien Scheme in full, but there was a catch. Scotland must give up its parliament and its sovereignty. In 1707, the Acts of Union were signed. One Scottish lord famously muttered, "The end of an old sang." The money used to buy Scotland's independence was effectively the blood money from the Darien mud. Without this disaster, the United Kingdom might never have been born. The British Empire was built on the ruins of a Scottish nightmare. The irony of history is brutal. Today, the Panama Canal, one of the world's most profitable assets, sits exactly where the Scots died. William Paterson's logic was flawless. His execution was a catastrophe. The story of Darien isn't just a history lesson. It's a warning for the modern age. It's about the danger of map logic, the belief that a brilliant idea on paper can override the brutal reality of the physical world. It's about how leaders can become so blinded by their own projections that they lead an entire nation into a death trap. As you look at the world today, ask yourself, where are we following map logic right now? Are we building empires, or are we just digging graves in the jungle? The jungle of Darien has reclaimed the ruins of New Caledonia, but the ghost of the colony still lives in the map of Great Britain.
A nation lost its soul for a dream that was always destined to be a nightmare.
Thank you for watching.